We have a problem. The Trump regime is in the process of ballooning the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, into a massive, armed force whose mission is to arrest, detain, and deport immigrants from the United States. Since the second Trump administration began, the White House has demanded that ICE arrest thousands of immigrants per day in order to deport 1 million immigrants each year. ICE received a massive influx of funding when Trump's federal budget passed in July 2025. $75 billion was allocated to ICE over the next 4 years in order to meet the regime's deportation quota. $45 billion of that allocation will pay for expanding its existing detention system. During this second Trump administration, ICE has become notably more aggressive in its tactics to remove immigrants from this country. Agents conduct raids with their faces covered and without identification badges visible. They act with impunity because they are able to remain anonymous. As a related consequence of this practice, criminals posing as U.S. ICE agents have carried out robberies, kidnappings, and sexual assaults in several states. Agents often arrest U.S. citizens and immigrants who have legal status to be in the United States. An overwhelming majority of immigrants arrested by ICE have committed no crimes. Agents often confiscate documents proving detainees' citizenship or their legal right to be in the U.S., as well as other personal property, such as cell phones, and do not return them. Agents make arrests without warrants signed by a judge. Agents transport people they detain to detention locations without a way for their family members to know their whereabouts, and without access to lawyers, family members, or judicial hearings on the charges against them. Their actions often violate the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees all people in this country the right to freedom from unreasonable search and seizure, regardless of their immigration status. Their actions often violate the Fifth Amendment, which guarantees all people in this country the right to a hearing before an impartial judge, regardless of their immigration status. Their actions even violate the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection under the law to all citizens. When Wisconsin local law enforcement agencies contract to assist ICE, they participate in the unconstitutional activities of ICE. Local law enforcement participates in disrupting the fabric of the community when neighbors who have been living and working alongside other residents are targeted and removed by ICE, and when people in targeted groups become afraid to call to report crimes or to assist police in law enforcement investigations. Local law enforcement participates in the increased pressure on taxpayers in local counties and municipalities who end up footing the bill for overtime expenses for local officers while their coworkers are training or performing extra ICE-related work. Liability for the municipality or county involved in lawsuits for wrongful detention and other abuses by agents. And additional operating expenses for the local law enforcement agency pertaining to ICE-related arrests and/or detentions. Dangerous legislation is pending. On March 18, 2025, the Wisconsin State Assembly passed Assembly Bill 24, County Sheriff Assistance with Federal Immigration, which, among other provisions, requires sheriffs to comply with detainers and administrative, not judicial, warrants from the Federal Department of Homeland Security for people in jail, or else the counties will lose 15% of their shared revenue payments from the state. The bill passed on a party line vote, 51-43, with Republicans prevailing to pass the bill. The bill is officially ready to be scheduled for a floor vote in the Senate as Senate Bill 57. Proposed Wisconsin legislation to protect Wisconsin from ICE. Several Democratic legislators in the Wisconsin legislature have offered a package of bills labeled Keep Families Together to counteract the pressure that the federal government is putting on our state and local governments to cooperate with ICE. Here are the bills that have been introduced in the Wisconsin legislature. Assembly Bill 441 and Senate Bill 444, the No Secret Police Act. AB 441, SB 444, requires law enforcement officers to identify themselves when arresting an individual by displaying their names and badge numbers and telling the individual by what authority the officers are making this arrest. AB 441, SB 444 also bans the use of face coverings or disguises to conceal officers' identities, with the exception for the use of medical-grade masks for health and safety circumstances. Assembly Bill 739 and Senate Bill 493 prohibit cooperation with ICE. This bill forbids state and local officials and employees, including law enforcement officers, from helping to detain an individual if they are being detained solely based on their immigration status. It does not prohibit such officials or employees from providing access to any place if the ICE agents present a properly executed judicial warrant. This bill also prohibits state agencies or other bodies in state government and local government units, including any law enforcement agencies, from entering into 287G agreements or continuing existing 287G agreements. Assembly Bill 57 and Senate Bill 54 ban on ICE collaboration in community safe spaces. AB 57 SB 54 bans state and local officials, including law enforcement, from aiding in the detention of an individual if they are being detained solely based on their immigration status in the following safe community spaces: public buildings or facilities, schools, places of worship, child care centers, and medical or other health care facilities. It also stipulates that unless required by a judicial warrant, no person employed or present at the safe community space may be required to provide access to the location or aid in the detention of the individual if solely detained based on immigration status. It also bans any state finances from being spent on aiding in the detention of individuals if solely detained based on immigration status. Assembly Bill 475 and Senate Bill 446, Due Process for All. This bill directs state funds to community organizations who provide civil legal services to individuals and families related to immigration. This will allow them access to due process by filling the current funding gap for people accused of the civil offense of crossing the border without documentation. Currently, they do not have a right to a public defender because crossing the border without documents is not a criminal offense. Assembly Bill 444 and Senate Bill 484 ban state support for immigration detention centers. This bill prohibits Wisconsin's state agencies, local governments, and county sheriffs from allowing their facilities, such as jails, detention centers, or other public buildings, to be used to detain individuals solely because of their immigration status. It also blocks the use of state or local taxpayer dollars to create, operate, or support any immigration detention facilities within the state. By preventing the state's infrastructure and resources from being used in federal immigration enforcement, the proposal aims to ensure that Wisconsin communities are not financially or operationally involved in detaining people based on immigration status alone. Although this legislation package has been introduced in the legislature, the Republicans have a majority in both the Assembly and the Senate. It is unlikely that these bills will ever progress through their committees and face a floor vote in the general body with any chance of passage into law, unless your friends, family members, and neighbors, no matter their political persuasion, can be convinced of the value of safeguarding our communities from the lawless actions of ICE. You can talk to them and help them understand that we need to act now. We need to contact our state representatives in both the Assembly and the Senate and tell them that they should vote yes on each of these bills. We will provide you with information to give your friends, family members, and neighbors so they can reach out to their representatives and express their certainty that no matter how they feel about immigrants, no one deserves to be treated with the ruthless, inhumane cruelty used by ICE.